Thank you very much, Senator Reid and Dr. Wilson. It's wonderful to have you back here, and I look forward to you serving in government again. You were a terrific colleague in the House. We talked about retention of pilots. We talked about the pilot shortage, and part and parcel to that is the retention problem we have. They're so well trained, they're so talented, they're so marketable that the private sector wants to hire them. So speak to that, if you will, but also, do we have the same problem with the cyber workforce in the Air Force, and what are we going to do about that? Because these folks are so skilled and so smart, and the demand for them is so keen out there.
Senator, let me take those in reverse order. With respect to the cyber workforce, you're right. The demand is very high outside of the Air Force for folks with those capabilities. One of the things that you put in the Defense Authorization Act last year was to allow the services to explore some other direct commissioning programs. And I'd like to kind of turn to the Air Force and kind of ask them whether that provision might be used in the area of cyber, and particularly whether there are opportunities for National Guard and Reserve units in cyber that we could locate in places where there are concentrations of highly technical people. And I would be interested in turning to the Air Force and asking them that and working with you all on it, because it's going to be an issue. They're too highly valuable to not be taken away. With respect to the pilot issues, there are a couple of things. I was very pleased yesterday to see General Grosso's testimony concerning targeted bonuses. So it is not across the board. It is more of a negotiation to try to keep as many pilots as we can, and a lot of flexibility there with respect to trying to retain a pilot. But it's not just about the money, because we'll never be able to compete with the commercial airline industry. It's going to be about the quality of service and being able to do the job, and that's readiness. If a pilot can go out and fly today, if the aircraft is ready today, it's maintained, they have enough jet fuel and enough flying hour time, you're much more likely to keep them. And I think there are a lot of additional duties that get added in for people who are here to fly and fight, and we need to try to make sure that their experience of flying in the Air Force is something no one in their right mind would ever give up.
Is it partially about bonuses, though? And I wonder how much we're talking about spending.
Senator, there are some bonuses that General Grosso testified about that yesterday, and you all have authorized some additional pilot retention pay. What I was pleased to see, and you all authorized, was the Air Force testify yesterday about using those dollars flexibly, so that we don't just say across the board, if you're a pilot, then you get this X bonus for Y number of years, but to, as private industry does, make this a bit of a negotiation and certainly try to keep pilots in the areas where we're most short. Particularly we know we're having a problem with fighter pilots. Allowing the same amount of money as a bonus for somebody who's not a fighter pilot doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So we can agree it's a matter that needs attention, both with the fighter pilots and the cyber force.
Yes, sir.
Now, you mentioned on page 2 of your testimony the quality of leaders at the squadron level, and also education of airmen and the quality of command. And you talked about this in the answers to the questions that you answered in writing. So what are the specific concerns about the quality of command at the squadron and wing level?
Senator, I think it's at the squadron level where you really set the culture for the Air Force. And if an airman has confidence in their first sergeant and their squadron commander that they'll do the right thing, they will treat them fairly, and that they care about them, you've got a great, well-led Air Force.
We've been deficient there?
Senator, it's not so much that we've been deficient, but we've always got to be developing those young leaders. And the Air Force does it differently than the other services, and it's really driven by the way we do our mission. Someone is put in a cockpit and they're flying and mastering that weapon system with very little responsibility for people until they become a commander. As I understand it, there's about a 1-week training course, and then you're on the job. I think that perhaps we can learn something by taking a step back, looking at how the other services develop their commanders, or even other countries, the RAF or the Israelis or whomever, to see what could we do better. Because if we have well-trained and well-educated, well-prepared squadron and wing commanders and first sergeants, we will set the culture in a positive way for the United States Air Force.
Put your thinking cap on. We look forward to having your thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.